The 1950s weren't just a time, they were a feeling. A front porch swing, soda pop in glass bottles, and Saturday cartoons in black and white. Simpler days, slower pace, stronger connections. If you lived it, you'll remember. If you didn't, you'll wish you had. Let's journey back together. And hey, tell me in the comments, were you there? What's your favorite 1950s memory? And how old are you today? You know, back in 1950, every kid dreamed of owning a red radio flyer wagon. It wasn't just a wagon, it was a race car, a boat, a spaceship, all depending on how far your imagination could stretch. Drive-in theaters were magic. You'd pull in with the family, hang that tinny little speaker on your window, and watch a double feature under the stars. Jell-O molds were, well, everywhere. Somehow every party had one. Lime, Jell-O, floating canned fruit, maybe even shredded carrots if someone got bold. Sunday dinner meant the whole family. No excuses. Grandparents, cousins, noisy uncles, everyone crammed into one room, passing mashed potatoes like it was a relay race. You didn't text your neighbor. You just walked next door. Need sugar? Knocked on the door? Need help? They showed up with tools. And maybe pie. You could buy a whole house for about $7,000. Not rent, own it. Real wood floors, a yard, a garage. And the neighbors, they actually knew your name. Gas was 29 cents a gallon. And no, that's not a joke. $5 got you a full tank, a Coke, and maybe even some change for a pack of gum. And here's the best part. You didn't even pump it yourself. A young guy in a uniform did it, cleaned your windshield and called you sir or ma'am with a smile. We thought TV dinners were the future. Little foil trays with mashed potatoes and meatloaf. Eating on metal TV trays while watching I Love Lucy. It felt high-tech back then. There were no remotes. You were the remote. Dad would say, turn the channel, and up you went to twist the dial. Phones had rotary dials and cords. And if you messed up dialing on the last number, you started all over again. No tapping, no swiping, just patience. Mr. Potato Head. Oh, it was real back then. And by real, I mean we used actual potatoes. Plastic parts came in the box. You stuck them into a real spud. Imagine giving that to a kid today. We played outside until the streetlights came on. No phones, no tablets. Just dirt, bikes, and whatever games someone made up on the spot. We all survived with one bathroom. Can you imagine? One. You either learned to wait or learned to yell. Having a color TV, that was a big deal. The neighbors would come over just to watch a show in color. It was like magic on screen. Coca-Cola tasted better in glass bottles. Pulled it from an ice-filled cooler, popped the cap, and took that first icy fizzy sip. Pure joy. You didn't DM people. You wrote letters, handwritten, thought out. And you waited days, sometimes weeks, for a reply. And it was worth it. Baseball cards weren't investments. They were treasures. You traded them, flipped them, and kept them in the shoebox. Still not over Mom throwing mine out. Lawn darts were basically weapons, but nobody thought twice. We threw them, ducked, and somehow didn't end up in the ER. The milkman came by every morning, glass bottles clinking on the porch, and if you were lucky, you got to peel off that little paper cap before breakfast. Elvis didn't just sing. He shocked the country, the hips, the hair, the voice. Parents were nervous, teens were obsessed. Waffle House opened in '55. Tiny place, always open, everyone welcome. If you liked waffles and coffee, you had a seat at the counter. We didn't stream anything. We tuned in, gathered around the radio as a family, listening to a ball game or a mystery like it was the biggest event of the week. School lunches were hearty, not happy. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, peas, served by a woman who looked like she could lift a tractor, and you didn't dare complain. Phone numbers had names. Ours was Cherry 71326. Sounded fancy, didn't it? Like something out of a movie. You didn't buy new shoes, you fixed the old ones. There was always a cobbler downtown, a few taps with a hammer, some polish, and they were good as new. Saturday mornings were sacred, not for sleeping in, but for cartoons. One shot, once a week. Miss it? Too bad. You knew every kid on your block, by name. You didn't need a play date. You just showed up, knocked on the door, and asked, "Want to ride bikes?" The ice cream man had a bell, not an app. You heard that jingle from 4 blocks away and sprinted like your life depended on it. There were no helmets, just hair and hope. Bikes, skateboards, roller skates. We fell, we scraped, we got up. No bubble-wrap childhoods back then. You ate dinner at the table, not the couch. With family, every night. No phones, no TV, just stories, laughter, and the occasional argument over peas. TV screens were the size of dinner plates, and weighed as much as a washing machine. Still, we huddled around them like they were windows to the future. There was always one neighbor with a clothesline, sheets flapping in the breeze, pins in a coffee can. No dryer smell, just sunshine and wind. Kids drank from the garden hose. Didn't taste great, but it was cold, and it worked. No filters, no fuss. You could leave your bike outside all night. And guess what? It'd still be there in the morning, unchained, untouched, unbothered. Grocery stores weren't super, they were friendly. Small, local, and the butcher knew your name. You didn't need a loyalty card, just loyalty. You read cereal boxes like books. Every word, every game, every puzzle. And the prize inside, worth every sugary spoonful. There were ashtrays everywhere. Airplanes, restaurants, living rooms. People smoked like it was good for you, because ads said it was. You didn't go to the mall, you went downtown. Every store was a little different, and the clerk actually talked to you. Men wore hats everywhere. To church, to work, to dinner. Take your hat off indoors. It was just what you did. You learned cursive before you learned algebra, and you used it everywhere. On envelopes, birthday cards, and notes passed in class. You didn't Google, it was called an encyclopedia. Big, heavy books lined up on a shelf. If you had the full set, you were fancy. Penny candy was actually a penny. Licorice, root beer barrels, waxed lips. You walked in with a nickel and left with a sugar high. Girls wore dresses to school, and boys tucked in their shirts. No ripped jeans, no hoodies, just a lot of starch. Babies slept in wooden cribs with no padding. And somehow, we all survived. Not a baby monitor in sight. Doctor visits didn't mean paperwork. You walked in, saw the doc, shook hands, and paid cash. No apps, no copays, no endless forms. Fireworks on the 4th of July were homemade. Bottle rockets from the garage, sparklers in the driveway, and maybe a burn mark on the grass the next morning. You fixed things with duct tape or a hammer, no tutorials. You just gave it a shot and hoped for the best. Most of the time, it worked. Lunchboxes had real character. tin boxes with your favorite cowboy or cartoon on the front, and that little thermos inside with soup or warm milk. There was a candy store, not an aisle. One shop, rows of glass jars, a smiling owner, and a tiny paper bag full of joy. Sunday mornings meant church, then pancakes. Every Sunday, families got dressed in their best. Dad in a tie, Mom in gloves, kids with polished shoes. Church was followed by breakfast. At home, never out. Big stack of pancakes, bacon sizzling in the cast iron skillet, and orange juice from concentrate. It wasn't fancy, it was familiar. Summer wasn't scheduled, it was freedom. No camps, no planners, just 3 months to roam. You left after breakfast with a peanut butter sandwich in a paper bag, and nobody saw you until dinner. The only rule? Be home when the streetlights come on. Radios weren't background noise. They were the main event. Before TV took over, families gathered around the radio. You listened, not watched. Westerns, mysteries, comedies. That voice, that static, it filled the room like magic. Your shoes got shined, not replaced. There was a little stand downtown. You'd hop up, lean back, and someone would buff those shoes until you could see your reflection. Felt like $1,000,000. You learned to drive in your dad's old Chevy. No power steering, no backup camera. Just a bench seat, your dad yelling, "Easy on the clutch," and a whole lot of stalling in parking lots. Stores closed on Sundays, and nobody minded. Need milk? Too bad. Sunday was for rest, family, and long drives with no destination. Today we call it off-grid. Back then it was just normal. Your best friend probably lived 2 doors down. You shared bikes, secrets, and maybe a few scraped knees. If they weren't home, you just waited on the curb till they showed up. No text needed. Kids earned money, mowing lawns or delivering papers. Your first job paid quarters, not dollars, but it felt like gold. A few lawns on Saturday, and you were rich enough for a soda, a comic book, and some gum. Every kitchen had a cookie tin, always full. Usually homemade. Sugar cookies, snickerdoodles, or oatmeal raisin. And Grandma somehow always knew when it needed refilling. Halloween costumes were homemade. A sheet for a ghost, cardboard robot arms, a witch hat made of construction paper. No store-bought Elsa dresses, just imagination, and maybe a little glitter glue. Snow days were actually fun. You didn't complain. You grabbed your sled, wrapped a scarf around your face, and headed for the nearest hill. School could wait. Snow was freedom. Your mom had one recipe for everything. The casserole, tuna casserole, green bean casserole, mystery meat casserole, always topped with crushed potato chips. And somehow, it always tasted like home. Dads had one tool for every fix. The hammer. Loose doorknob, hammer. Leaky faucet, hammer. Kid acting up. Stern look. Then the hammer. Just kidding, mostly. You wrote thank you notes, by hand. Birthday, graduation. Aunt sent you $5 in a card. You sat down, grabbed a pen, and said, "Thank you," the old-fashioned way. Dinner parties meant fondue and polyester. Your parents had friends over, put on records, and dipped everything. Bread, shrimp, maybe even marshmallows, in melted cheese. It was fancy, or at least they thought it was. You bought music on 45s. 2 songs, 1 on each side. You'd save your allowance, walk to the record store, and hope they had your favorite Elvis or Buddy Holly hit. Everyone watched the same 3 TV channels. No scrolling for hours, no algorithms, just ABC, NBC, CBS. And whatever was on, everyone was watching. The Sears catalog was basically Amazon. You could get toys, clothes, a lawnmower, even a house. All delivered to your door, eventually. We didn't call it shopping. We called it flipping through the pages. You only took photos on special occasions, birthdays, holidays, the first day of school. Film was expensive, and so were the mistakes. Every photo counted. You licked stamps, not a click, not a peel, you licked. It tasted like glue and paper cuts, but it got the job done. Every living room had a coffee table covered in ashtrays. Glass, metal, ceramic, you name it. Even if you didn't smoke, you had one, just in case company did. Kids respected teachers, and maybe feared them a little. There was no backtalk, no phones, just one big chalkboard, a dusty eraser, and a whole lot of yes ma'ams. Long-distance calls were expensive and precious. You didn't just call across states to chat. You planned for it. You made it count. And when you heard that long beep before the voice, it meant someone really cared. A handshake meant something. Deals were made, promises kept. You didn't need a contract if you had a firm grip and a look in the eye. Neighbors were like extended family. Need sugar? Go knock. Sick kid? They brought soup, vacation. They fed your cat. It wasn't weird. It was community. The mailman knew your name, and your dog's too. He came at the same time every day, whistling down the street in his uniform. If you were lucky, he'd hand-deliver your letter and chat a minute, maybe sneak Rover a treat. Every kid knew how to fix a flat on their bike. No fancy bike shops, just a patch kit, a little elbow grease, and your buddy holding the wheel while you pumped it back to life. That was real independence. Moms hung laundry out in the backyard, rows of white sheets flapping in the breeze, the smell of sunshine on cotton. It wasn't just chores, it was a ritual. You could smell clean from down the block. Grocery stores gave out green stamps. You saved them in little books, licking and sticking every page. And when it was full, you cashed them in for toasters, radios, stuff that felt like a reward just for being a loyal shopper. Drive-through banks used those air tubes. You'd put your deposit in a canister, send it whooshing through the vacuum tube, and wait for it to come flying back with a receipt. Honestly, it felt like magic. Ice cream trucks actually played music. You heard that tinny jingle from blocks away. Kids dropped everything, jump ropes, baseballs, even arguments, and ran like it was the Olympics. A quarter bought you a dream on a stick. Everyone knew a kid with a pet turtle. They were slow, silent, and smelled a little funny, but they lived in tiny plastic tanks with a fake palm tree, and we loved them like they were puppies. Your phone number probably started with a word, like Butterfield 36609. It sounded classy, almost secret. We didn't memorize numbers. We memorized names. Lunchboxes had your favorite TV show on them. Metal boxes with Superman, Davy Crockett, or Hopalong Cassidy. And inside, a peanut butter sandwich, an apple, and maybe a Twinkie. That was a 5-star meal. Every dad had a chair nobody else dared sit in. Usually near the TV, worn down just right. If you sat in it by accident, you jumped up when you heard his car pull in. That chair was sacred. People wrote in cursive, and it was beautiful. Looping letters, careful strokes. You took pride in your penmanship. Today, they don't even teach it. Back then, it was practically art. Gas stations gave out free maps, and they helped. You didn't need GPS. Just unfolded that big paper map across the hood, pointed your finger, and figured it out together. Half the trip was finding the way. Car windows rolled down with a crank. You'd lean over, grab the handle, and crank it till the wind rushed in. No buttons, just muscle, and it felt good. You saved bacon grease in a tin can, not for health, for flavor. You reused it to cook eggs, potatoes, just about everything. That grease was gold. Everyone had a TV guide next to the remote. Except there was no remote, just the guide and your memory. You'd plan your whole evening around what was on. Missed it? Too bad. No replays. Your teacher had a paddle and wasn't afraid to use it. It hung behind the desk, silent but powerful. One look at it and you straightened up fast. You didn't need attention, you just needed the paddle. Houses had storm doors with metal screens. The slam of that spring-loaded screen door, iconic. It meant someone was home, or dinner was ready, or summer had just begun. The whole family used one bathroom and made it work. You timed your turns, you knocked, you waited. Somehow, 5 people shared one mirror, one toilet, and one towel rack, and lived to tell about it. Record players were furniture. Big wooden consoles with speakers built in. You'd lift the lid like a treasure chest, set the needle gently, and the room would fill with Nat King Cole or Johnny Mathis. The kitchen smelled like coffee, bacon, and wax paper. Mornings were warm and noisy. The percolator hissed. Mom wrapped sandwiches in wax paper. That smell, it's burned into your brain forever. You collected bottle caps for no reason. Coke, RC, knee-high grape. You'd pop 'em off and keep 'em in a jar. No one knew why, you just did. It felt important. Everyone's grandma had plastic covers on the couch. Summer, you stuck to it. Winter, it crinkled. But hey, that couch still looked brand new after 20 years. And that's the point, right? You learned how to whistle with your fingers. 2 fingers in the mouth, 1 deep breath, and suddenly you were louder than any referee. Every kid had to learn it. It was like a badge of honor. A fire drill meant lining up outside. Calmly. No panic, no apps, just one loud bell and everyone knew what to do. We filed out in rows, held hands, and waited for the all clear. It was orderly chaos. And finally, everything just felt slower. Not in a bad way, in a beautiful way. You had time to think, time to talk, time to just be. Life didn't buzz, it hummed.